Hi guys, how are you this week, labbers? Thank you guys for tuning in to this week's Character Tuesdays! Yay! So, this week, of course, I promised you last week that you're gonna have a surprise for this week. So this Character Tuesday, it seems the weather had a bigger surprise for us all. So this week, adding to what I was telling you guys last week, I wanted to give you a surprise, I guess, recap. So I know there are many persons who have issues with building realistic characters. So this week, I wanted to give you guys some steps in how to do so, but more so, or should I say more importantly, I wanted to help you guys understand how to make your characters feel real. And when I say real, we all have the ability to create real characters when writing fiction, but there are just certain elements that make your characters come to life and just basically come off that paper. So let's go. So this week, I'm going to be discussing how to create the most realistic fictional characters. Now, the first thing I wanted to say is that brainstorming is key. Now, when creating characters, one has to sit down and basically look at your storyline, the different characters that you're going to involve, but most importantly, one has to break down the different characteristics of each character. And this is where brainstorming is key and is very important, because when you're brainstorming your characters, you now have the ability to break down each character based on their philosophies, based on their belief system, their morals, based on basically their entire psychological makeup. Then when you're done with that, you're now able to look at the physique, the physical, and then the spiritual man. So there are many elements that will make up your character, and brainstorming different elements will make a big difference. And I also find in brainstorming, one has to do sufficient research. There's nothing that goes well executed unless it has good research behind it. So make sure to do your research while brainstorming your characters. Next point. When wanting to create fictional characters that are realistic, you have to adopt general character ideas. Now, when I say general character ideas, an example of this is absent-mindedness. This is a character trait where your character can never find one thing that's, placed in a particular position. They can't remember where they put things. It's almost like they're not there, but there. Like amnesia, if you will. So that's one trait. The next one would be, for example, there's a character in your book who actually steals from the collection plate at church every Sunday. That's another thing to look at. Another general character idea is, for example, a character who will hire a dog sitter to stay with their dog while they're gone on a trip or while they're out of town, whatever the case may be. In adopting these general character ideas, it will help you put some meat and some structure to your general character to make your character more interesting, but more importantly, more realistic, because that's the aim. The next thing is occupation or hobbies. Now, just as in different persons have different occupations and have different hobbies, different characters will also have different occupations, different hobbies, or different passions. Our job as the writer is going to be to break down the different hobbies and occupations to match each character profile. So one has to be very specific when doing so that we're able to capture the right look and feel for a character. And as you know, there is no perfect character, but there is the type of character that gets to as realistic as we will need it to be, so our readers are engaged. The next thing, relationship. Now, as in all things, building relationships are very important. With characters, building relationships are key to helping to create a multi-layered approach to your character. So one has to be mindful of the relationships, the adult relationships that your character is building or has built. And one also has to be mindful of the childlike, like the parent and child relationship leading up to the adult stage of the character, which will also make for an interesting read. Next thing is the motivations. Now guys, as with real life, we all have to be very careful of the different motivations we have. Everyone has different types of motivations, and with our characters, we have to be very specific in using different motivations to bring across different ideas, but more importantly, we must know what motivates each character. For example, a minister may be motivated by the number of parishioners he or she will have coming to church. Now, in that stead, let's move on to the next. The last point I wanted to break down today is your flaws. Now, as humans, we do have flaws, and our flaws are what make us unique. So in building the realistic character, we have to ensure that we highlight the flaws. We want to look for unique flaws that will give our character that one key thing that makes the character stand out and be unique, but more than anything else, hold its own in the story. So don't be afraid of flaws. We welcome flaws when writing fiction because flaws help us create differentiation. And as you guys know, Labbers, character differentiation is key. Now, I wanted to move on to the next section really quickly. How to make your characters feel real. Yes, this is the most exciting part. So the first thing, I know I addressed this already, but it's very important. You have to mirror different parts of your life. So for some persons, building characters can be a very detailed process. But the reality is, building a character is just the same as making a meal or preparing a building for renovation or construction. So when building characters, mirroring different parts of your life can help you to build your character realistically, simply because who knows your life better than you do? So if you use different facets or different areas of your life to help mold that character, then you may find yourself coming up with an even more realistic approach to your character type that you are building. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I like when different writers play with contradictions. Now, contradictions can really pose to be negative, but contradictions pose to be positive in this case, because what you're going to be doing is using your contradictions to highlight different aspects and different layers of your character, therefore giving you a more realistic look at who your character is. Ever read those romance novels or those romance fairy tales where the knight on the white horse comes in the shining armor and he saves the girl and they ride off into the sunset? That's not necessarily realistic. But talking about a man who has had struggles, who come upon a lady that he likes, and after approaching her once, twice, thrice, she denies him, but something happens and then she realizes that this may be a good fit and they start courting and so on and so forth. That seems to me to be a more realistic trajectory. Notwithstanding that though, the contradiction there would simply be that love did not occur at first sight. That's one way of looking at it. But other contradictions could be in character traits, it could be in morals, it could be in beliefs. Whatever the contradiction is, whatever issue the contradiction is supporting, play with it to create different scenarios leading up to your storyline, or breaking down your storyline rather. And then the third one, let's be specific. Because remember, being specific gives you details that you would otherwise not see in character building and in building the right and realistic character. So being specific makes a big difference, and it helps you because you're building on details to break down your character. That creates the different layers that you need to bring your character to life. And then the last tip, Labbers, on how to make your characters more realistic. I'm gonna take an analogy, or I'm gonna, do something very creative now. I'm gonna say number 4 is stop Pinocchioing it. And I know you guys know what Pinocchio is. So for those who don't know, it's the fairy tale about a little boy who was made by his owner, a carpenter, and he wanted to be a real boy. And whenever he told a lie, his nose would start growing. So Labbers, don't Pinocchio it. Bring your characters to life. Give them the realistic elements, the realistic characteristics, the realistic morals, and the conflicts that we all have and observe as human beings that are animated. That will help you to get a more realistic character, but more than anything else, it will keep your readers engaged. So thank you so much for tuning in this week, Labbers, and I hope that this week was a great help in helping you guys building those realistic characters for your fictional sci-fi, romance, and even your ecstasy pieces. So thank you again for tuning in, Labbers. Have a great rest of your week. Bye for now.